In reading all 6 books in The Decline and Fall of the Roman Empire by Edward Gibbon, one topic, as I got to the end, I realized I had heard mentioned a lot, but got little or no summary on. These were the eunuchs. A eunuch was a castrated man. Eunuchs were considered the most suitable guards for many of the wives or concubines a ruler might have in his palace, and the eunuch's confidential position in the harems of princes frequently enabled them to exercise an important influence over their royal masters, and even to raise themselves to stations of great trust and power. Some rose to become bodyguards, confidential advisors, and even ministers, generals, and admirals. They became as a group almost like an ancient deep state. In the books, they are mentioned in snippets, stating their importance, but also not making them the main character most of the time. But little was done without them, was the impression I got at the end of the books. I'll go through some of the examples throughout the books to show the importance that the eunuchs played in the Roman Empire. It was the women and the eunuchs who formed a conspiracy against Emperor Macrinus. During the battle after this, in which Macrinus fled from the field, another eunuch, Gannes, whose occupation had been confined to female cares and the soft luxuries of Asia, displayed the talents of an able and experienced general. It was observed that all of the luxuries that flowed into the capital of Rome, eunuchs were among the most valuable, and the use and value of those effeminate slaves gradually rose with the decline of the empire. This paragraph from Book 1 shows just how important and how much sway the eunuchs held. As the third Gordinian was only about 19 years of age at the time of his death, the history of his life, were it known to us with greater accuracy than it really is, would contain little more than the account of his education, the conduct of his ministers, who by turn abused and guided the simplicity of his unexperienced youth. Immediately after his ascension, he fell into the hands of his mother's eunuchs, that pernicious vermin of the East, who, since the days of Elagabalus, had infested the Roman palace. By the artful conspiracy of these wretches, an impenetrable veil was drawn between an innocent prince and his oppressed subjects. The virtuous disposition of Gordinian was deceived, and the honors of the empire sold without his knowledge, though in a very public manner, to the most worthless of mankind. We are ignorant by what fortunate accident the emperor escaped from the slavery, and devolved his confidence on the minister, whose wise counsel had no object except the glory of his sovereign and the happiness of the people. It should seem that love and learning introduced Misitheus to the favor of Gordian. The young prince married the daughter of his master of rhetoric and promoted his father-in-law to the first offices of the empire. 2 admirable letters that passed between them are still around. The minister, with the conscious dignity of virtue, congratulates Gordian that he is delivered from the tyranny of the eunuchs, and still more that he is sensible of his deliverance. The emperor acknowledges, with an admirable confusion, the errors of his past conduct, and laments, with singular propriety, the misfortunes of a monarch, from whom the venial tribe of courtiers perpetually labor to conceal the truth. During the reign of Diocletian, the interior apartments were entrusted to the jealous vigilance of the eunuchs. The increase of those numbers and influence was the most infallible symptom of the progress of despotism. The principal eunuchs, Lucian and Dorotheus, Gorgonus and Andrew, who attended the person, possessed of favor, and governed the household of Diocletian. The shadow aspect to this group of people is shown in this quote from Book 2. The Christians, it might specifically be alleged, renouncing the gods and the institutions of Rome, had constituted a distinct republic, might yet be suppressed before it had acquired any military force, but which had already governed by its own laws and magistrates, was possessed of a public treasure, and was intimately connected in all parts by the frequent assemblies of the bishops, to whose decrees were numerous and opulent congregations yielded an implicit obedience. Arguments like these may seem to have determined the reluctant mind of Diocletian to embrace a new system of persecution. But though we may suspect, it is not in our power to relate the secret intrigues of the palaces, the private views and resentments, the jealousies of women or eunuchs, and all those trifling but decisive causes which so often influence the fate of empires and the counsels of the wisest monarchs. During the reign of Constantine, the eunuchs are given the authority, besides the magistrates and generals, who, at a distance from the court, diffuse their delegate authority over the provinces and armies. The emperor conferred the rank of illustrious on 7 of his more immediate servants, to whose fidelity he entrusted his safety or his counsels or his treasures. 1. The private apartments of the palace were governed by a favorite eunuch, who, in the language of that age, was styled the propostus, or prefect of the sacred bedchamber. The eunuch's power reached another level during the reign of Constantinus. A quote from Book 2. The divided provinces of the empire were again united by the victory of Constantinus. But that feeble prince was destitute of personal merit, either in peace or war, as he feared his generals, distrusted his ministers. The triumph of his arms served only to establish the reign of the eunuchs over the Roman world. Those unhappy beings, the ancient product of Oriental jealousy and despotism, were introduced into Greece and Rome by the contagion of Asiatic luxury. Their progress was rapid, and the eunuchs, who, in the time of Augustus, had been abhorred as the monstrous retinue of an Egyptian queen, were gradually admitted into the families of matrons, of senators, and of the emperors themselves. Restrained by the severe edicts of Domitian and Nerva, cherished by the pride of Diocletian, reduced to a humble station by the prudence of Constantine, they multiplied in the palaces by his degenerate sons, and ostensibly acquired the knowledge and at length the direction of the secret counsels of Constantinus. The aversion and contempt which mankind had so informally entertained for that imperfect species appears to have degraded their character, and to have rendered them almost as incapable as they were supposed to be of conceiving any generous sentiment or of performing any worthy action. But the eunuchs were skilled in the art of flattery and intrigue, and they alternately governed the mind of Constantinus by his fear, his indolence, and his vanity.